Is my tie straight? Yeah, but is it straight? Welcome, huge movie fanatic Nate, stopping on by. This time I'm coming your way for one of my famed movie/Blu-ray reviews. Today I'm delighted to stop on by to review the movie and Blu-ray of Haunted Honeymoon. I can remember being a kid in the 80s, possibly, maybe into the 90s, seeing this cover in VHS video rental stores in the 80s or the 90s. And I think it was put out by HBO Home Video, if memory serves. My history with this movie doesn't go very far back at all. I actually just blind bought this during a recent Kino Lorber sale. I think I got this for $10. I couldn't pass it up, being a pretty big fan of Gene Wilder and a big, huge fan of Young Frankenstein. Of course, I would regard that as probably maybe his best movie, or at least that I've seen. I haven't seen all of Gene Wilder movies. I can remember being a kid in the 80s, probably seeing the VHS cassette of this on the store shelves, 80s, 90s. And for some reason, even though it's got a really kind of a cool poster / front cover, for some reason I never ended up seeing this, which is just really weird. And when I came across it on that recent Kino Lorber sale, and I saw I could get it for $10, I'm like, you know what, this is probably worth a blind buy. Turns out it very, very, very much was. It's actually a really cool movie, and I didn't know anything about the fact that it actually took place, which was really cool because I'm a big fan of the first half of the 20th century. I think it takes place in around the 30s or the 40s or something, which is even more cool. I mean, it would have been cool as it is, even if it would have been quote-unquote contemporary from whatever it came out in 86 or somewhere thereabouts. And incidentally, the guy who did the music for the movie Clue, this movie feels very much like Clue, almost as if the same guy could have made it, but the same guy didn't make it. Gene Wilder, I think, wrote and directed it, but the same guy who did the music for Clue, a kind of a spooky haunted house kind of a movie, or not haunted house, but murder mystery movie with a spooky atmosphere, I think it was the same year or a year later, did the music for this, which is kind of interesting. And one thing I'll say right off the bat is I was just thrilled to discover it took place in the 30s or the 40s. Some really fun music and like a musical number in this. And the atmosphere, this movie is absolutely dripping with just like spooky haunted house kind of scary comedy atmosphere, very much akin to Young Frankenstein. If you're like I am, if you're a fan of Young Frankenstein and never seen this, I mean, rest assured this is like very, very similar to Young Frankenstein, and actually does some of the same kind of beats and stuff. And although Young Frankenstein was like a Gene Wilder, Mel Brooks production, this is more or less, obviously it doesn't have any Mel Brooks involvement, but it definitely has Gene Wilder involvement, as he's, I'm pretty sure, the writer and director and obviously the star. But very briefly, I was oh god, I was so excited to see this movie. Starts with like a Gene Wilder and his I don't know if he was married to Gilda Radner at this point, but if not, soon to be wife Gilda Radner, who's pretty fantastic in this movie. This might be the first movie I actually own with Gilda Radner. I don't think I've seen a lot of stuff with her in it, but she's great in this and great in that musical number and stuff. And I was aware that, I think, around the time that it happened, I think my mom, made me aware or something. I was aware of the fact that, around the time of her purported passing, I was aware of the fact that Gene Wilder's wife had died young or whatever. And yeah, I always thought it was the chick from Young Frankenstein that was his wife, and not this woman. I got them confused or whatever, but I can't remember. She's also in Paper Moon. I can't remember her name right now. It just occurred to me there's two chicks in Young Frankenstein, not Terry Garr, but the other chick. Don't touch the nails. Taffeta, my darling, Taffeta, sweetheart. Bye bye. But anyway, I'm all over the place, but I was thrilled when this movie started to see that there's a comedy, kind of a comedic scene where they're doing like an old-time radio show scene, and I'm a big fan of old-time radio, and it was just a really fun scene. And honestly, probably I've seen in a couple movies over the years, like them you know, doing a period movie where they're doing like an old time radio thing. And this is honestly maybe one of the best old time radio like recreation scenes in a movie, because they just show all the ins and outs very quickly of like the sound effects and the wind machine and rattling the tin for the thunder, and the, you know, the thing to make the guy on the other line, the other side of the telephone line voice, and you know, the door slamming and all this, you know, dropping the phone on the receiver and just all this kind of stuff. Very quickly they showed a lot of the ins and outs of the old time radio, you know, show, you know, behind the scenes in that scene, which was really cool. But very early on in this movie, we're introduced to Gene Wilder and his, I think they're engaged, you know, the Gilda Radner character, they're engaged to be married in the movie. And we're interested, I think you know, they got some big, is it a big radio show thing they got going on or something, or is it anyway, they're doing well in their career, whether it's on stage or on the radio thing or whatever. But there's this part, you know, point in the scene where Gene Wilder kind of freezes up and screws up or whatever, and people are like, what the hell was that? And it's like this Gene Wilder is like, you know, has some kind of a nerves thing or something, that this one guy, and it's actually the guy who I've never seen in anything, but I know he's in Popeye, but the movie I know him from, the big burly Brutus guy, is from Pieces, of course. And I don't think it's his actual real voice in Pieces. I think it's some guy doing his voice, but I don't think I've ever heard that guy's real voice. So to hear his real voice was interesting. It kind of had a unassuming voice, almost like Gunnar Hansen, or do you pronounce it Gunnar Hansen? I don't remember, but it was kind of cool to see him like with Gene Wilder and stuff, because I'm just used to seeing him in Pieces, that, you know, just whatever it is, frickin' Spanish American production of a horror movie or whatever. But yeah, the whole premise of this movie is, you know, the Gene Wilder character has some kind of nervous problem, and they come up with this idea, and you know, and he's on the top of the world and a big success, so they don't want his, you know, career to go into the dumps because of his nerves or whatever. So someone comes up with a great idea to basically scare him out of his nervousness, which makes a whole lot of sense. And they basically go out to this, I can't remember, it's actually been weeks since I've seen this. I think back when I got it, I did see it 3 times, relatively, you know, 3 times in a row or whatever. I watched it by myself, then I showed Beth, then I showed my mom. So I saw it 3 times not long after I got it, but of course that was weeks ago. But they go out to this house to basically, I can't remember what the whole reason they're going out to the house for is, but I think incidentally, like, the exterior of the house is the same, you know, kind of like castle or whatever that they go on to use for the exterior of of Bruce Wayne's, you know, manor or whatever in Batman 89. And I don't think they actually show do they show an exterior in Batman Returns other than a model? They might just show a model for the exterior in Batman Returns. I don't remember. But as far as I'm concerned, Batman Returns almost doesn't exist. So I pretty much watch Batman 89 almost exclusively. I just watched it the other day, and I'm like, you know what? This is almost kind of like, to me, the one and only Batman movie. Like, for me, like, there almost isn't a Batman movie that exists after Batman 89. It's just such a special movie to me. But anyway, that's a whole nother video. But, you know, all kinds of hijinks and goofy stuff ensues during their stay there. And it's interesting that, honestly, you know, if you're hoping for a whole lot of Gene Wilder's-ness, it's interesting because, I mean, he's the director, so it kind of stands to reason. But he's not in the movie, like, as much as maybe you'd think he would be because he's, like, the star or whatever. But that was kind of surprising. It's kind of like an ensemble cast and stuff, so there's plenty for other people to do as well. But I will say that I didn't get necessarily everything the first time I saw it, and when I saw it the second time, I actually kind of got it more. And it's interesting that how, like, you know, admittedly, you know, some people might be able to get all the details on a first viewing more than I can. I'm kind of, when I see a movie, it's like it's all coming in, you know, visual, sound, all kinds of stuff, so it's hard for me to get all the ins and outs because I'm just soaking everything in. But seeing it the second time, I kind of understood more of some of maybe the minutia or the smaller details regarding this and that, of which I won't spoil. Luckily for you, I can't even remember all the minutia and the details, so even if I wanted to spoil them, which I don't, I wouldn't anyway. But it is a really kind of a confident little story, and like I say, dripping with kind of spooky, creepy, scary atmosphere, and I grew up with Clue. I actually saw Clue with my folks in the theater in its initial run, so I grew up with Clue, and I'm a big fan of Clue, and it's just a bummer that movie didn't do better, so there could have been a Clue 2 or Twister. Imagine a Twister movie based on the frickin' board game or whatever. That would be funny. I guess that'd be maybe more akin to being an adult film. But anyway, yeah, I found this movie. I guess I can spare you the details because I don't. Luckily, maybe not luckily, but as I haven't seen it for weeks, I can't really remember the details. But I will simply say that this was a very, very good blind buy, and something that I that would have easily paid $15 for, but I got it for $9, so yay me. But yeah, a really fun, like I say, it's it's like I don't know what, just over 10 years after Young Frankenstein, and it's definitely got the Young Frankenstein feel. And as I said, he does kind of some shtick that very similar to the stuff that can be found in Young Frankenstein. I'd give this probably 3 and God, 3 and we'll go 3 and 1/4 stars out of 4 stars for Haunted Honeymoon. It's a really kind of just a fun frickin' 1980s, mid to late 80s movie, and I guess it was a big enough budget at the time where it was actually recorded and released in stereo. So if you do happen to have it is just 2-channel stereo, but if you do happen to have a surround sound system, the music is even in 2-channel surround, the music is really beautiful, and the surround soundness of this movie. So yeah, I can definitely recommend the movie for you fans of Young Frankenstein and other Gene Wilder movies. On to my review of the Kino Lorber Blu-ray release that came out, and yeah, good luck with that. I don't know. I'll pause and come back and tell you when it was released. It might not say when the hell the Blu-ray was released, but it doesn't really matter. It exists, and I bought it this year. Haunted Honeymoon, yay. And obviously, since this is the first time I saw it, I don't really have anything to compare it to, but I will say that looks fine to me. Just your classic 1:8:5 aspect ratio, 2-channel surround, looks actually really kind of good, and definitely no anomalies that I could remember to report or anything. Just a very all-around solid presentation, or just harkens back to the good old days of 1986 when they were making movies on something called 35mm film, and it was actually a chemical process, something they'd been doing since the very first days of film in the frickin' 19-teens. Tried and true, although it's expensive and clunky and cumbersome. The film is kind of delicate and, from what I understand, flammable, but the good old days of when movies were shot on film. And this being 1986, it's right around the time in the movie history where a movie could either be a lesser movie would possibly still even be mono in 1986, but if you had a bigger budget kind of a movie, more of a mainstream kind of a thing that expected to do decent business, by 1986 you're most likely looking at a stereo soundtrack. And as I already said, the sound on this release sounds really kind of good, especially if you listen to it on a surround sound receiver. Actually, I'm not seeing a spot on the back at all for special features whatsoever. I think there's a trailer. I'm pretty sure there's at least a trailer for this movie. I don't know why they wouldn't put it on the back as a special feature, but I'm pretty sure the trailer is on this Blu-ray release. If it isn't, I will probably not include this blurb where I say there's a trailer on the Blu-ray in this video. The disc itself looks like that, as so often is the case with Kino Lorber releases. Not a whole hell of a lot to write home about, but at least the presentation of the movie on the disc is very good. You never know what's going to happen when you blind buy a movie, but in this case it turned out better than my experience with my blind buy Blu-ray purchase of October Storm. I've already reviewed that movie in Blu-ray. Feel free to check that out. But this was a much better blind buy than that particular one because I actually frickin' enjoyed this movie and watched it 3 times probably within maybe the week or a week and a half after I got it. So I've only seen October Storm once, and I don't know if I'll ever see it again, but I'm reviewing this movie, so I'm talking about this movie. So this movie in Blu-ray, highly recommended. Thanks so much for watching the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and as always, we'll catch you on the next video.